Call to order the Committee of the Whole meeting for Tuesday, February 25th, 2025. First item on our agenda this evening is roll call.
Barraza. Here. Lancy.
Here.
Beck. Here. Pieper. Here. Malone.
Here.
Solfa. Wolf.
Here.
Barron. Here. Lehman. Here. Ayazi.
Here.
Malay. Ewer.
Here.
Saron. Vogelsinger. Here. That'll be 10 of you.
And both Alderman Saron is probably going to be late if he comes online. And then Malay and Solfa also said that they're going to be a little late tonight to the meeting. All right. Item 2 is a reminder to use the microphone if you come up to the podium to speak to us tonight. Item 3 would be approval of minutes from February 11th, 2025. Any changes, corrections? Can I get a motion?
Moved. Second.
Motion by Ewer, second by Yazi. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Items to be removed, added, or changed. We would like to take item D in the consent agenda and move that to item 7A so we can have a discussion about that before we do a $100,000 budget amendment. We should talk about it. What?
Would that be D and E? Yeah, I guess technically it's D and E.
It'd be both of them then, and then we'll probably put those on the regular agenda when they come to council as well. So D and E will move to 7A and B. Can I get a motion for those changes?
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion by Ewer, second by Ayazi. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. And do we have anything for anybody for something not on the agenda this evening? Matters from the public? Okay, seeing none. We'll move on then to the consent agenda. Alderman Beck.
Your Honor, the consent agenda reads as follows. Resolution 2025-30-R, authorizing purchase of software server licenses from SHI International. Ordinance 2025-12, annexing property at 02 South 690 South Redant Road. Resolution 2025-32-R, authorizing the mayor to execute a mutual release of claims with Vega Building Maintenance for termination of renewable contract. And I move we approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, then we will move on to item 7, which is a motion to approve request for proposals for removal and relocation of the tin shop building at 106 North River Street.
These are 2 RFPs that we're presenting to you tonight to either move or relocate the tin shop at 106 North River Street or to demolish the same building. The order that we would propose these in is that first we would offer up the building to be dismantled or relocated as a whole and see if there's anybody that's interested in it. And if not, then we would then come forward with the RFP for demolition of the building and clearance of the site and leveling of it. We would put this out for advertisement, send it out to entities that we know that may be interested in either type of package. If nobody is interested in moving it, we would then move ahead with the RFP for demolition. No matter what happens, we would let the council know this, and you would have to approve of any proposal that would come in before you, regardless of which way it happens. So those are the 2 motions that are in front of you tonight.
Anybody have any questions on that? I know we've talked about this at length at other meetings, and I think this is, the right way to go about moving forward with this. Yeah.
Just because this is kind of a sensitive topic in the community, I'm a little in favor of approving the relocation RFP tonight and then withholding on the demolition one until we see what kind of response we get, like really just push that and move forward with that. And then come back with the demolition RFP later, because as far as I can tell with what's going on in the city, we're not in a extreme under pressure to get these done because we don't have anybody interested in this land right now. Is that correct?
We don't have anybody proposing anything because we haven't gone out for another RFP for redevelopment of the site, but we are looking at this as the site for the future restrooms. And so we have to get that done before the end of the year to use the funding that's available for that project. So we are kind of, to an extent, in a time crunch with that, unfortunately, so.
Sarah?
Just for clarification, does that mean we need to have the bathroom project completed or just under contract by the end of the year?
The building and site would have to be cleared before the end of the year and preferably a couple of months before that because we do want to put the restrooms in there and get the site prepped for that. So that does kind of compress the time frame because of
There's
that
a
too.
16-week lead time for ordering of the public restroom, and so that's also part of this.
And remember that will have to come back to us regardless of whatever comes of these two sets of proposals here. So from that standpoint, I don't think it's bad that we would approve both of those tonight and move that forward. So that way they're both in place for whatever happens. And then when whatever proposals come back in that we would get to decide what one we want to go with, then we would make that approval at that point to do one or the other.
I could certainly, once we've gotten through the bidding part of the first one, I can certainly come back and report to you, say, who we've received and, or if we haven't received any, report that to you as well, either way.
And just to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, it says in here, we're looking for a 30-day period for the first for relocation. And we would be willing to entertain sort of low to zero cost proposals, right?
Yes.
If nothing comes forward on a zero or low cost proposal within those 30 days, you're suggesting that you'd kind of come back to us, update us on that, and then we'd move forward with the 30-day demolition RFP, see what we get.
That's correct.
After 30
Yes.
days. Okay. Thank you.
Abby?
Does staff or anyone else have any pointers or tips for how we as older people can help get the word out or who we should talk to?
If you know of any interested parties, by all means, I know Landmarks Illinois has had, some interest in, trying to broadcast, the interest in the site because, they're concerned obviously with the removal of the building. We are going to put it on our website. We have had some people, interested over time in either reuse or relocation of the building. Don't know their wherewithal or their ability to do that, but that's going to be up to them to prove that up, obviously. So, but yeah, if you want to, talk it up amongst everybody by all means, if somebody is willing to, take the building and move it or dismantle it, we'd be welcome to hear that.
Any other questions? Yeah.
So the timeline for the public restrooms is next summer?
It would have to be by the end of this year.
Well, the end of this year for the demolition. I'm just trying to get the timeline straight. Can you
Everything.
clarify?
Yeah, so in terms of the timeline, because of this is all TIF money, my understanding is we have to use and actually have paid all the TIF funds by the end of the year or we lose them. And so the public restroom project would intended to be using whatever TIF money we have left. The timeline for the lead is 16 weeks. It can be up to 20 weeks depending on which materials we select. But we also have to do a good amount of site work, including some plumbing and sewer work, not too much. But that's kind of why we're trying to do these two paths at once. So if it does in fact go to, removal or, rehabilitation, then we kind of pause that whole cycle. But we want to kind of keep it moving so that if we go down that demolition path, we have a project and, it's one of the things we have started to engage a landscape architect to kind of consider and make that a much more cohesive and planned public restroom site. So that's kind of what we're thinking is that timeline. So that's kind of why the goal would be late summer, kind of fall timeline. Again, it depends on kind of what we hear back on this RFP and the other ones.
Okay, would anyone care to make a motion on item 7 for removal and relocation of the tin shop?
Second.
Motion by Yazzie, second by Barron. Roll call, please.
Raza. Aye. Lancy,
Aye.
Beck,
Aye.
Pieper,
Aye.
Malone,
Aye.
Sofa,
Aye.
Wolf, Barron, Lehman, Ayazi,
Aye.
Malay, Ewer,
Aye.
Saron, Vogelsinger. That's 11.
And then we'll move on to item 8, which is a motion for,
Actually, don't forget, we put it in between these, but 7A
Oh.
and B.
I'm sorry. Well, then we'll wait a minute to do that second one. We'll go to 7A then, which is Resolution 25-33R, authorizing approval of a budget amendment in the amount of $113,507 from Public Works Capital Fleet Budget. Gary.
Well, these two resolutions actually go back to the pandemic and the global supply chain issues. We put an order in December of 2022 for 3 international chassis, truck chassis, using the Illinois state purchase process. And it is now obviously almost March of 2025. And we finally have gotten notice that 3 of those 3 chassis are set to be built in September or October of this year. So it's still not even going to be built for another 6 months. We were offered the chassis if we still need them. In the meantime, because obviously it's been now 3 years, we've ordered other chassis from other manufacturers. That actually we bought a Peterbilt and we bought some Western Stars. But forever, International has been the state of Illinois state bid chassis. But we do still have a need. In 2026, we're going to have another truck replacement. So we could use one of these chassis. As Scott mentions in his memo, the cost of these chassis are $15,000 less than the chassis acquired just this year from the other manufacturer. So it would be good for us to acquire the truck that we're planning to have for 2026. The reason why this would be a budget amendment then is because it's not in the 2025 budget, but it is something that would come to you in 2026. So we would need to modify the 2025 budget from a cash flow standpoint to pay for it in 2025, and we'll take delivery in 2026 by the time we get it fully outfitted after we have the chassis in September, October. So.
Anybody have any questions on what we're doing? And this has been an issue with pretty much
Everyone.
everything that we've tried to order.
Yes.
Whether they've been hybrid vehicles for staff cars or anything else. We've just had, nightmares with all of it, including squad cars, ambulances through Tri-City Ambulance. Just about everything vehicle-wise has been extremely backlogged or not available.
Part of our issue also is we buy 2 at a time, or we buy 3 at a time. The outfitters, the people who actually put on the dump bodies and the plow equipment, they needed to stay in business, and they weren't getting chassis either. They actually, many of them went in the business of buying chassis because they could buy chassis 50, 60 at a time, and then they would get the chassis in, and then they would sell the whole truck. So the supply chains threw the whole order of things out of order, but that's what this is all about. Okay.
And Gary, there's no way of saying our intent is we want to buy one. We just have to say, yes,
Correct, yes.
we got to
at this
buy it
time, we just
now.
have to say
Otherwise, we're
when.
going to lose our place in
Otherwise, we'll
line.
lose all 3 of them, and then we'll
Okay.
start from scratch.
Just want to make sure.
Yep.
And anytime you can find a chassis that fits the specs that you have and it's cheaper than what you thought it was going to be, we should buy it.
To that point, Alderman, we actually have a bucket truck coming up next year too. So we looked at one of these chassis for the bucket truck, but it's too short. So it won't work for the bucket truck, unfortunately. Or else we would have bought 2 of them.
Yeah.
Just for my own ignorance, so we're going to order these chassis, it's going to come next year,
September of October of this year,
Yeah.
the chassis will be manufactured. It'll come.
and then we anticipate needing it the year after.
Nope, 2026 is when it's on our schedule to be replaced.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we still have to outfit it though. So even once we get the chassis, we won't get the chassis until late of this year. Then we still have to send it to an outfitter to get the dump body and the plow equipment on it. We're literally just a chassis and a cab is all you get.
All right. And so, is it sitting in a lot somewhere then, like, if we didn't need it right away, would it just be sitting like out in the open?
It's not even manufactured yet, so we're going to take it right straight from manufacturing.
Right, to get it out.
To us, and then we're straight to
Both,
the
right,
outfitter.
because we're getting 2 of these.
I'm sorry? Just one.
Oh, just one. Oh, I see it. Okay.
Yeah.
One truck chassis from, okay. All right, thanks.
Any other questions, comments? I can get a motion on item Resolution 2025-033R, authorizing approval of a budget amendment in the amount of $113,507 from Public Works Capital Fleet Budget.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Ewer, second by Zolfa. All those in favor? Aye. Let the record reflect Alderman Cerrone has joined in. All right, and then we'll move on to item E, which is now 7B, which would be Resolution 2025-034R, authorization to purchase one truck chassis from Rush Truck Center of Springfield, Illinois.
So moved.
Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And I think we should leave those on a regular agenda because of the budget amendment.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, then we will move on to item 8, which is motion to approve a request for proposals for demolition, backfill, grading, and seating of the tin shop building site at 106 North River Street. I have just one question. Are we going to use our equipment, our employees to do the site work for the sewer work and stuff that has to be done to put the bathrooms there? Or are we going to contract that out to have it done?
Under the RFP, the responsibility were for them to just level grade it and seed it or blanket it. And then any additional work would end up being our work to do.
Okay, because my thought was is not to have to do things twice on the site if, the building goes away for however it does, and then we have the site graded for what we're going to put on there, then finish the site work after that work is done.
Most of the work that we have to do is primarily the utilities. It's not so much the grading. There'll be some, but most of it's going to be the utilities that we have to
just want to see us do it once.
Right.
Mark?
Is this out of order at all? If we're going to go and order the bathroom, let's say, would not the desire to be to, if we don't get rid of the building and then we demo it and then we have the bathroom on its way, I mean, why seed it if there's a bathroom that's going to go right on top of that seed like a month later?
I think it'll depend on the timing. I mean, if the bathrooms are right away going to be there, then yeah, you're right. I mean, we would probably just say, let's hold off on that. We just wanted to put it in there just in case to make sure that it's, not eroding into the area. That would be the main reason for it.
And this is just, we're going to throw out an RFP, but if we look at timing, then we can say, sorry, we're not going to do it.
You don't have to pay,
We need
you
to
don't
be able to
have
have
to do
that.
seeds, right? Yeah, exactly, right.
Okay.
Scott, per our NPDES permit, you are only allowed to leave dirt uncovered for 7 days, pretty much in a growing season. So 7 to 14 days, if you're not going to touch it, then it needs to be seeded. And we always want to comply with those regulations. So even if they just throw a rye seed on there, something just to keep it covered in a blanket.
Also, the public restroom itself is going to have to sit on a concrete pad. So that might be something that we do early on after the demo, is to prepare for the restroom by putting the concrete pad down.
Yeah, so is this just out of order? Is this necessary right now, just out of curiosity? I mean, how long would it normally take you to get an RFP for somebody to do that kind of work? And do we just wait to find out where we're at in 3 months or whatever?
Well, I mean, this is very similar to what we did at 916 Park Street with the demolition we did there. So it's the specs are pretty much in line with what we proposed there. So, I mean, I'm not sure what out of order part though.
Just that we may not have to do this at all if we're going to throw it on if it comes out and we're like, okay, we're going to pipe it, throw a concrete pad down there, then we obviously don't need. Would we be having somebody grade it for us so that we can put the concrete pad down, or would we do that work?
I think there'd be a coordination between engineering and the contractor ultimately as to, how it's done. Again, it depends on how imminent the bathrooms are. I mean, if we have it and it's coming the next week, then, we probably would hold off. But, Andrew, do you have?
Yeah, depending on where we are at that point, we always can add an alternate bid for different stages where maybe we do a concrete pad or we do seating, and then we have those alternates in place with the bid so that we can put language in there that states that we can use whichever fits and we're able to remove some things. And maybe by the time we get through the bidding and are awarding it, we'll be able to eliminate one or two of those items.
Thank you. Other questions? If not, then can I get a motion, recommend to council resolution 2025-34R? Oh, no, wrong one. Motion to approve request for proposals for demolition, backfill, grading, and seating of the tin shop building site at 106 North River.
So moved.
You were second by Yazzie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Right, then we will move on to item 9 with it, which is resolution 2025-29R authorizing approval for police authorized tow contracts. Chief?
Thank you. Yeah, so bringing this back to council, Chief Mazza had originally brought the police authorized tow contracts that were up for 2025, 26, and 2027. At this point, we're keeping the recommendation the same, which is to move forward with 4 companies that would be Certified Towing, Dazos, Duke and Lee's, and the addition of a 4th company, which is Rivera's Towing. I believe some of the tow vendors are here today and may wish to speak after me. Just to give you a brief history on our towing contracts here at the police department. Our towing contracts originated in 2010. Since inception, we have had 3 vendors. In 2010 to 2014, we had 3 vendors and an alternate. The alternate would have been Duke and Lee's, and they were chosen to be an alternate not because the city didn't want 4 vendors, but because their business was located outside of Batavia. In 2014, one of our original companies closed, and the decision was made to add Duke and Lee's to our rotation, so we maintained a rotation of 3 vendors at that time. Duke and Lee's later moved to Batavia in May of 2018. Just to give you some insights into how other municipalities handle tow contracts, Geneva PD does utilize the same 3 tow vendors as Batavia. St. Charles also has 3 vendors, one of them being Certified Auto, but there are other agencies in the area that utilize various numbers. So North Aurora, for example, has 6 different tow vendors on their tow list. We talked to a number of other agencies, some that had more, some that had less. Really, state statute allows departments to select as few as 1 and up to an unlimited amount. So kind of our reasoning behind the recommendation, currently we don't make or spend any money on these towing contracts. Our job is to choose vendors that meet the requirements of the state statute and the city's local criteria in terms of like response time, location, storage, security, service, those sorts of things. I do understand our current 3 vendors' concerns about decreased revenues. But ultimately, our responsibility is to the citizens, not the bottom line of these companies. What I can tell you is historically, increased competition is generally good for the consumer, yields more competitive pricing, which is something that we haven't seen with our current 3 vendors lately because they have been working together to establish pricing. So with Rivera's Towing, one of the factors is that their pricing was considerably lower than the other vendors, 21% lower for a base tow. 39% lower for daily storage. So we think that this just serves the citizens of Batavia better in terms of creating this additional competition and having this additional option as part of our tow rotation. I do recognize these vendors incur some amount of overhead to participate on our tow list. I am appreciative of their service. I have nothing bad to say about any of our current or the future tow vendors. They have all served us very well and very admirably. But we do believe that the money that they get from our tow contracts is a relatively small percentage of their overall revenues generated and likely not the primary source of revenue. So based on that, our recommendation is to move forward with the 4 tow vendors.
Anybody have any comments or questions? Chief's up here.
I do have one because this was not brought up in our last discussion about this, but you mentioned how the other applicant has lower pricing and you thought that might help with competitive pricing with the rest. We didn't discuss that as a topic last time, which begs the question in my mind, can we set caps on what the fees are that they can charge us, or can you have no input on that?
So we did look into whether or not we can set caps or set prices for tow vendors. It does appear that it's something we'd be able to do for future RFPs. For this one, that was not one of the requests that we made. So the recommendation would be to go with the pricing that was compiled by the tow vendors.
Okay, so future times we can.
Future times, that may
potentially
be a
save some money
consideration that we take into effect, yes.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah. The one thing I did not touch on is I know that there had been a request for just what are the tow numbers for these companies. We're averaging right around 350, 355 tows per year the last couple of years, which is about 118 tows per company with our 3 vendors. With adding a 4th vendor, I would expect a decrease of about 29 to 30 tows per vendor. They'd average about 89, 90 tows per vendor if our towing rates remain consistent.
Any other questions?
So you mentioned that the city of Geneva uses the same 3 contractors we currently have, correct?
Correct.
Is it the same rates in Geneva too? Do you know?
I do not know what their rates are in Geneva off the top of my head.
Shaking heads in the back that they're saying yes.
Yes, the
They use
answer is
same
yes.
rates.
Okay. And so I think the memo also said that basically the reason why this is being done is just because there's a new contractor that's within city limits?
So we're just up for our annual renewal, and there are 4 qualified vendors. We believe that each of them would be able to fulfill the expectations admirably, and so that was why the recommendation for adding the 4th.
The 4th is just a new one within the city limits?
It is, yes. It's a new vendor. They actually they applied to be one of our tow vendors 3 years ago. We rejected them at that time because they were not a City of Batavia company. They were making their way into Batavia at that time. So we did not make a recommendation to include them in the tow rotation last time. But they moved into Batavia. They made physical improvements to their facility in terms of security, cameras, fencing, things like that at our recommendation because they were focused on becoming a authorized tow vendor for the department.
So my only concern with this would be that, I mean, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but say there's 2 more that come into town. So we're going to have 6 then at a certain point in time. What I foresee happening just on supply and demand and overhead is that then you're going to have qualified towers saying we're not going to do it anymore, saying it's not worth our money at all. We love serving the city of Batavia, but what's the point? So, I mean, I think that we're on a slippery slope of not having a limit, and it seems like other cities don't necessarily use every tow company that's available to them. So I'm just not sure. I think we need to have more of a definition of how these things are chosen and moving forward. I mean, maybe we should get the input from some of the people here as to why they have a contract with us and why they think it's profitable, not profitable, anything like that.
Does anyone from any of the tow companies wish to speak?
Why don't just give us your name for the record?
Hello, good evening. My name is Evelyn Rivera. I'm a part of Rivera's Towing. I help my dad and my uncle run their business. A little bit about our business is we've been open for about almost 15 years now, and we've kind of started up in West Chicago. There has really not been any room to grow in West Chicago. We've also applied to their police department, and they're steady on their 4, I have notes here. There are 4 towing companies, and we've also kind of wanted to grow, but they're want to stay the same. They don't allow us to grow. So we've chosen to grow into Batavia, and gratefully and thankfully, we've had lots of great opportunities here, and we want to offer more help to the city of Batavia. And so since we have been gracefully offered this opportunity, we kind of do want to just serve and do our best and be a part of it. Is there any questions for us? No. Thank you.
Tim.
I'll just make a comment that, I mean, I think the competition's welcome. I mean, you make some good points, Chris, but I think we cross that bridge when we get there. I mean, like you said, it's a hypothetical, and I don't see it getting to that point. If I'm not a big fan of price fixing, and if we have three companies that are fixing price across, and we potentially eliminate a competitor that's trying to come in and compete with them, I think that's a slippery slope in itself, right? And I don't like the idea at all of putting caps on it or anything like that. I think we just let these four tow companies battle it out, and the free market will decide from there.
I comment on that. That's not the way it works, though. The way the contract works, it just rotates. So it's like luck of the draw. You get your car towed. It might be Dazo, it might be certified, it might be whoever, and then you're paying whatever they're charging. So the price fixing thing and saying that this is going to do anything, you don't get a choice when your car gets towed as to who's towing you. So they can charge whatever they want, okay? So those points that you just made, I do not.
When the city needs to tow your car.
But they agree to that price.
Right.
To get the contract. Now, the thing that'll happen here is if we have four and three of them have the same price and the fourth one has a different price, if you're the fourth time that comes up, you get the discounted price.
But
The person before you and the person after you pay the higher
you're
price. of the
you're
other
not getting your
ones.
car towed by the city because your car broke down.
No, I understand that, but I mean, in terms of price fixing, I'm just saying it's not like you get to choose which one is coming in to get.
No, I understand.
It's a rotation. So whoever told
Right.
you, it's whatever they charge.
Yes, in our contract. But it's public knowledge what they're charging, and people have a choice to call different companies
Wait,
I have a question here real
for
quick.
different rate, if they perceive that, hey, I got my car towed in Batavia by the city and these guys killed
I
me
see-
on
I
that,
see-
but
I
these
see what
guys
you're-
I know
no,
have
I
better
see- I
price.
see what you're saying,
In the
yeah.
future, if I need my car towed, I'm going to call that guy.
I see what you're saying there. Okay. But I'm just saying, in terms of this contract,
Yes, good point. No,
it's just whoever's on the rotation for that particular call.
right.
So I guess the question I have is, are the contracts for the three companies we utilize right now, are those up? So we are able, if we're going to cap it at three, it makes sense that we should then drop one of the existing contracts and pick up the cheaper one if they meet all our criteria and they're cheaper, right? Or we can open it up to all four and then maybe cap it at four. And if a fifth comes along, then maybe the fiscally responsible thing to do is if they meet all of their criteria, go with the cheaper one, right? So, I sort of the market, when we're talking about sort of the free market, we're the consumer here, and our responsibility is to be fiscally responsible. So if we're thinking of capping it, it makes sense to me that we pick up the new company that has the cheaper rate, drop one of the companies that has the higher rate. If we keep it open, then we don't have to make that tough call. So, I mean, I think you're both making very good points, but the market solution seems to be, sounds like the new company, if they're doing everything right, they got the lower cost, that appears to be someone we should be considering to add to our contract list.
I think that's the problem. I understand what you're saying there too, and that makes total sense, but I think the problem is that wasn't the defined parameters, and we have no defined parameters right now, and we are trying to decide what this one is right now, if we should recommend it or not. In the future, I do believe that would be a better way to approach this situation, but that's not what we're faced with right now in terms of we don't have a hypothetical, we have an actual situation, so.
I don't know how other cities handle that, whether they come in and they say, okay, this is how much you can charge for a tow, this is how much you can charge for storage, and if you accept that, then you're on our towing rotation.
That's why I was wondering what Geneva, that's why I was wondering if there's different rates for different towns, and they seem to say it's the same rates there, so.
Yeah. Your Honor?
Yeah, as most of you know, I have a fairly close relationship with the Kane County Department of Transportation, who kind of keeps track of what's happening around. And they're telling me that we are seeing a significant increase in the amount of traffic in Kane County in the last 3 years, specifically on Kirk and Randall roads. That the numbers are going up. There's more and more cars all the time, which is probably going to translate into more and more need for towing, be it accidents or broken down cars or whatever. So there is a definite need. I'm glad we have 4 bidders or 4 people standing here, because it would appear we're going to need them. And I just look at the traffic that goes across the town certain times of the day, and it's not unusual to see them backed up from Batavia Avenue all the way up to Route 25 or beyond that. So there's definitely a more needed resource in towing, because there's more and more traffic than we've ever had before.
The thought being that the numbers are going to go up.
Right.
You want to come up and make a statement?
I'm Lincoln Johnson from Duke and Lee's. So how we came up with talking to each other, Priority Towing came into Batavia. They wanted on the city list. They kept telling everybody they wanted to get on with Batavia. That's why we sat down and talked, because we did not want the city or the public to be paying those kind of rates. So we talked to make sure that we had our overheads covered, because we own I own my building. So we just wanted to make sure that no customer was going to be paying more than the next guy. We wanted it to be fair for the consumer, not price gouging, making sure, one towing company isn't charging $1,000 for an accident, the other one's only paying $200. So that's how we did that. I know you guys don't do you don't have the volume that you used to. That's our concern. If our drivers, we tow for other police departments, all the police departments are down. So it's not just like Batavia's down, Geneva's down, King County's down, Auburn's down. So right now, we feel there's not need for 4 companies, have them on the list. If our volume goes up, then yes, he gets an opportunity. Everybody should have an opportunity, but we shouldn't always suffer, the ones that are doing the job that you're asking us of, spending the money on the new trucks, providing service to the community the best we can for not price gouging with the new equipment. I know Bob's spent a lot of money in new equipment. I have. Oscar has. That's all we're asking, is to really look at our business too and say, hey, they have those expenses and they're trying to keep the community not overcharged. Thank you.
Good evening. How are you guys? I'm Dana. I'm with Pizza Towing in East Dundee, northern Kane County. I partnered with Oscar from Certified Towing about 2 years ago, so I'm newer to this area. I am excited to be here at this meeting because it is kind of the first meeting in southern Kane County of kind of experiencing how you guys kind of represent yourself and talk about the tow company and how you actually view the industry. So I've been in the industry for almost 20 years in my area. I provide police towing response service to that area for a number amount of agencies up there. None of my agencies up there have four companies up there. I understand that the chief is stating that, we have other sources of revenue that which we do. All of the companies have other revenue sources. But being in the industry and providing service to the police department, it's a tough job. A lot of people see tow truck companies and they say, it's just a tow truck guy, he shouldn't be that much. It should be maybe $75 for a tow. There's a lot of things that go into the industry that you guys don't see, that you guys have no idea about. And again, it's not your problem. That's our problem. This is the business we chose or fell into one way or another. There's work comp which is just through the roof, the amount that we pay for that. So there's a lot of expenditures that we have that a lot of you guys don't see. In addition to that, the revenue in this contract, we're not guaranteed payment for anything. If we have an accident that we respond to and my driver's out there and he spent 2 hours out there removing this car and whatever the case may be, there's no guarantee that we're going to be paid for that service. So a lot of it can be almost goodwill. And just like they stated before, the volume, the economy is definitely slowing down right now. retail's down, transportation's down, people are getting laid off left and right, where I completely understand where Revere is coming from. They want to grow their business. I completely understand that. I've been in that position before where I'm trying to get into the police department as the new tow company. But I really don't believe that this is the time for it at all. So that's all. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, so here at this table, we have to, and I'm a small business guy, so don't get me wrong, and I love Dazzle's Towing. They've helped me out tremendously. But we're fighting on behalf of the people here.
Correct.
If somebody has a 20% lower cost on average, or whatever it is, say it's 10, 15%, whatever it is, lower cost, and they're in the rotation, that helps the people. How does it not?
I understand that. And again, no offense to Riviera's at all.
And I respect your overhead, but with all due respect, we don't care.
100%, for sure.
Because
I get it.
for the reasons
I get
you
it.
stated, right?
And it's industry-wide. It's a known fact. If you want to get into the police towing, the number one thing that you're going to do usually is undercut price, so I'm also part of the PTRI, and we're trying to fight that and all that good stuff as well, which it's a struggle in the industry that tow companies that are newer, they want to undercut our prices. You know, the prices that they're at prices from not Revera's. I'm just saying that in general, when newer companies come into police towing, they bring back the towing industry prices 20 years ago, which is a struggle. Again, I know it's not your problem, it's our problem, but there has to be some sort of standard where you realize that these companies are just trying to bring down the rates just to get in here, and it's sure it's to kind of grow their business. It's going to grow their business, but it's not overall. It's not good for our industry, unfortunately. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
I'm in sales. It's
sure.
not good for your bottom line, for sure, right? But that's how people get their foot in the door,
Right.
and then they raise their prices, and it's a game, right? So I get it, but at the same time, you know, unfortunately, I just don't see a way around the savings even in a short period, right? I mean, that helps whoever gets that towing company. So as long as they've passed the rigorous demands of our PD and our city, I can't vote against it, even though I'm a small business guy and I love Dazzle's Towing and I don't want to do anything to harm that.
There's
but
nothing in the contract that
just-
says that, or in your ordinances that say, hey, you have a maximum number of these amounts. So just like one of the gentlemen said, you know, if somebody pops in next year or next contract and they meet all the requirements, they could come on board too. So I completely understand what you're saying, especially if they're 20% less than where we're at right now.
Anything's possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we're kind of, what I'm struggling with here, this is a really tough decision because we have a marketplace where we have sort of, it's zero sum, right? It's not like I can go out and create new accidents, right? I can't make the pie. I mean, I could, but I won't. I can't sort of expand the pie here. It's a zero sum game. So if we let a new player in, a little bit of money is going to be taken away from everybody else. And thank you all for coming, because now I have to look all of you in the eye and either say to one family, you don't get some of that pie, or I have to look to the other folks who are residents of Batavia and say, sorry, I'm giving some of your pie to someone else. So that's really hard. I want to say that sort of out loud at where I'm at. Kind of where I'm thinking, it then sort of to Tim's point and your point is that it does create a race to the bottom a little bit. I think, Tim, you're saying like, okay, like if we get the windfall from that, we get the windfall from that. But I don't know.
Streets get commoditized every day.
Yeah. And kind of where I'm standing at is I think we can create a space for a fourth company is where I'm feeling. If a fifth company comes along, then I'm going to start to think really hard about it. Because there might not be the volume and we might begin to lose folks. But it seems like if West Chicago is running 4, West Chicago's not that different from us. I feel like we could sustainably maintain 4. And so that's kind of where I'm leaning right now, but I just wanted to put voice to the struggle that I'm having on this, and that it's not an easy decision at all.
I think the situation we find ourselves in is that Rivera was under the assumption 3 years ago that if they got all of their ducks in a row, that they would be authorized to respond to this RFP. And so it's unfair to them for them to have put in all this work with that assumption to now be in the situation where we might be like, never mind. Now, the fact that we are here, I feel like we need to really think into our future. Like, are we going to do this to another company? Like where we say, okay, yeah, do all these things so that you can be considered, and then no, we're not going to authorize you to be our contractor. So, so that we don't do this to another small business, I feel like in the future, we need to maybe solidify is 4 our limit? Or are we open to 5, 6, 7? So that's where, I mean, if Rivera hadn't been under the assumption that if they got all of their improvements done, then they would have been considered. And if we had told them straight up, no, we're going to stay with 3 companies, but you can get your improvements done and then be, in the lineup. I just don't know if those conversations happened 3 years ago.
Just to touch on that, at no point was Rivera's ever told, if you do this, then you'll be included on our list. It was, you're not being selected for these reasons, and these are the things that we look for in our tow companies. They chose to make those improvements because they wanted to compete and be competitive with this list. There was no guarantees or promises that they would be added to our tow rotation.
Abby?
Thank you for clarifying that. And I wanted to say that I agree 100% with Leah in terms of watching our call volume and reacting to it, both bigger and smaller, because you said that call volume is down across the board, across the industry. If that continues, I echo all the sentiment of how difficult this is. I am fine tonight adding a 4th, but I would like to look at the numbers year over year and say next year, if call volume goes down, then we respond by saying, then we're taking 3. And we keep each year saying, reflective of where the industry is going and where our roads hopefully are getting so much safer that we don't have any more accidents and we're not towing as much, that then we keep it responsive.
And the roads are getting safer. The stoplights with the left turn signals, there's more people on the road that are getting direction from the signals. In addition to that, Uber, that people aren't drinking and driving. They're making smarter decisions. So with the economy itself getting slower, and then those 2 things as well. So.
Chris?
A couple of things. One is that I think the first time we heard anything about 21% and 39% was tonight, if I'm correct. Number 2, I'm glad that was clarified, that there was never any, like, you do this and you're in. I mean, that's the first I heard of that was tonight as well. So those are 2 things that I think are brand new. One, that is not true. And then the second one, which wasn't even in consideration, and I don't think it should even be in consideration. It should just be about whether or not, in my opinion, there's enough volume to even utilize 4 companies. And from what I've heard, I just don't hear it. Maybe, and so that's why I don't think I want to approve this. Now, I agree with some of the comments of other aldermen, though, that this whole process needs to be maybe fixed moving forward in terms of, are we going to cap it? Are we going to have some type of bidding process moving forward? I mean, instead of just saying you're in Batavia and you meet these requirements, so you know what, we're going to do this. I don't think that's a good way to do this. I don't hear a reason why we need 4 right now. I think the whole process needs to be changed for the next time this RFP comes up so that we don't encounter these issues that we're encountering tonight. So those are my comments, and I'm against this.
I need to go online here real quick because Nick has had his hand up for quite a while. Nick, You still there? Go
I
ahead.
am, thank you. No, I am just going to be frank. I support the chief's recommendation. This is a scenario where, I mean, we should evaluate it, but if they're all equally qualified, then we're just giving business away. I don't really see the difference if there's 10 or if there's 2 people. If they're in a rotation, if they're qualified, how do we make a decision and say one isn't? Do we go, is Duke and Lee's out because they're from Geneva? Is the new guy out? Because I mean, it's easier to do it by qualifications. And if you qualify, you get some of the business from the police. I mean, I'm going to support the chief, and I like open markets. And if their business is struggling and then go to a different town or go add to your business, but that's competition and that's the way it should be. So I'm going to support this.
Just a question, this could be totally wrong, but in the vein of competition, does it have to be a rotation? Or can this be, I mean,
That's the fairest way to divide it up.
rotation.
So that way it's not one company gets 1 month and one company gets the next month, or,
drives
they just go through the rotation. The one issue that I have with multiple companies, multiple bids, and the fact that, one day I might pay $200 for the tow, and the next day I might pay $175 because we've got one company that has a lower cost. And is that the best thing to do for our citizens when we're trying to keep the costs down and allow the competition of having multiple people bid on this when we go through that? So that's one of the issues I have, and I'll just speak from experience. For 35 plus years, we had 2 tow trucks at a minimum where I worked. It got to the point where the amount of times that the truck was on the road and actually making any money got to the point where it barely was able to pay for fuel costs, insurance, and repairs. And we haven't had a tow truck in 3 years. So, we got to that point where it just didn't make sense to do it anymore. I mean, I can remember times when I started where I was out in the tow truck for 12 hours in a day, sitting in the train station, jump starting cars. That just doesn't happen anymore. That's not how that industry works anymore. So it is difficult to find an income stream and to keep that income stream, relatively constant for towing companies. So to add one in there, that is going to take something away from the other businesses. But again, I wish there was a way that when we went through this process, which we were going to have to talk about in the future, how we do this, to come up with a way that in the end of it, we try to use whatever we decide is a low bid or a responsible bid for the companies that qualify, and then everybody agrees to that price. Because I don't know that it, to me, is right and fair and even to have multiple vendors charging different prices, and you're just at the luck of the draw, whoever shows up that day.
That was my question.
And that's why I want to find out how other cities do it. I'm sure Chicago has their whole.
Is there anybody that doesn't do it in a rotation, and you're basically in a
as far as I know, around here is all rotation, and I think maybe one time 25 years ago or something, we were on the towing rotation for the city, and it just got to the point where you just don't make any money doing it.
I'm not educated enough on it.
Because you can be in an accident scene for 2 hours.
From
You've
the
done it a
industry,
long
and
time.
Yep, exactly. And
Does that
being
exist?
part of the association, I get a lot of feedback from a lot of companies. So when I first came up here, as far as 4 tow companies being in this town, I was really surprised that there was so many. Up by me, we have 1, maybe 2 max for all of the cities up there. The city of Elgin, they have 2 companies on rotation, and they set their rates. And they are open with, so I say setting the rates, and I want to also shut my mouth too, because setting the rates can become a struggle with you guys not being in the industry. It's hard for you guys to say, hey, the towing industry, you guys need to set your rates at $50. Well, that's a little too low. But Elgin is very nice, and they're pretty practical as what their rates set. The tollway, I-90, they set their own rates. A lot of the companies, there's Crystal Lake, they have 3 tow companies. And they go in, this is what the rate is, and it's almost like it is right now where they can have up to a certain amount of tow companies and qualified, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay.
I've been sitting
The
here like
qualified candidates can provide service to Crystal Lake at this particular rate. There's some municipalities that I provide service to, that I've been providing service to for 40 years before my time, and I just provide such amazing, excellent service to them, and they know that I'm a forefront in the community. I'm a reputable person. I'm involved in the community. They know that what I'm doing is the right thing to do, and they just trust me. So there's a lot of different ways that different municipalities handle it. So I know it doesn't give you a clear answer. No one right answer is going to be right for every single town. But that's just what I'm used to. Like that's some experiences that I know.
Yeah, thanks. I do agree with Abby that we have a great opportunity because before the RFP goes out, we kind of have an idea of what the numbers are. And that would really allow the chief to say, okay, what percentage, what range are we going to say we're going to have 4? What range are we going to have 3? And that can be written into the RFP. Also, as the RFP is done, it could be we're setting a rate up to a certain amount. If somebody wants to come in under that, they're welcome to. But I think if this continues to be such a struggle for people, we can always rate the RFPs, and we can break it down into certain parts of, what do you rate the pricing? What do you rate the different aspects of it? And then we could come up with, if we have 5 people that apply and we're saying we're only going to accept 3, when we do the rating, then that would help us select who the top 3 are because we voted based on what our, whatever our criteria is. I think that at this point for us to sit here and continue to talk about, what we're going to do into the future, we have to look at what we're currently looking at right now. I'm okay with going with 4. And, as you said, I think later on, we'll need to have that discussion, but I don't want to sit there and say, I don't want to frame it. This needs to come from staff, and we work as the advisors, to get the final selection. But there's some opportunities of what we can do in the future to make this better.
I think with what we have before us today, we go with that. And then in the future, we design it differently to, develop the criteria and whatever.
And people can know ahead of time, like, if the chief is like, no, I think our numbers are where we need 4, then he can put that in there and people know that we're going to accept 4. If we only get 3, then we get 3. If we get 5, then we're going to have to do a rating on how we, decide on what that is. And that's okay. And that's what a lot of people do with RFPs. They do a rating.
No, I just want to follow up on that in terms of who says if the 3 are enough or 4 are enough. I don't even know if it's, the chief who can get those numbers or if that's what we rely on staff to do is to tell us about these things.
I think
overall,
it's the chief that
these are things
decides.
that we're not in the industry and then they all bring it to the chief and then the chief says, here's the numbers. And
And he kind of has the low end right now, like saying, okay, if it's 300, he knows we can't go, whatever that number is. What was our high number last year? What was our low number this year? That's what our range for the 4 is. If it goes above or below that, then we take that number down or up. And, feedback, definitely appreciate everybody's feedback, helping us educate with that. With that feedback, it only makes the process better.
And just to give you a little bit of feedback as far as when you oversaturate the market with providers, Naperville, the city of Naperville, and even Rockford, those two cities became oversaturated with, as somebody mentioned it, with providers. And unfortunately, they no longer, I don't want to say no longer, but as far as the quality of providers, it's like, nah, I don't want to tow for them anywhere. There's a lot of people that don't want to tow for, and it's It's like, all right, you know what, I bought a tow truck yesterday and I want to go provide service to Rockford. Let me go ahead and provide service. And they don't do background checks. They don't, like, or there's things that get overlooked where companies that, like all four of us here, we look at backgrounds, we look at our reputation, all that good stuff. So just giving you feedback as far as oversaturating the market with service providers can become a negative impact to the village.
I will say one good thing that we're dealing with here is we have companies that we don't have to worry about feedback about how bad they are or how horrible their service is or anything else. So that's one good thing that we do deal with here. Leah?
Thank you. I would just like to make a comment that I think the representative from Rivera was hoping to speak again.
Oh, sorry. No, you're okay.
Abby, did you have your hand up too? Okay. I just want to make sure I'm trying to go back and forth, make sure I get everybody in here.
Nick still does, though.
Yeah, Nick, you still want your hand up? He's good at that.
I know there was a lot of good points made about revenue and companies and all of these different cities having different numbers. So we actually did some research on different police departments and their numbers, as the chief also stated, around our surrounding areas. North Aurora has 6 companies. West Chicago, of course, has 4. As it was said, Naperville has 11. Aurora has 11. Shorewood has 4. Geneva has 3. And Batavia hopefully has 4. We kind of we understand that it can be saturated, but we want to be given that opportunity to be great just as much as these 3 companies are. We want to be given that opportunity to prove ourselves. Sure, our prices may be 20% lower, but that also is a foot in the door to keep trying, to keep growing. Maybe we might get all 4 of us to the same prices and we won't have any issues, but I believe that it's all greater for us that we all have the same expenses. We all understand that gas is expensive, or diesel. Diesel is expensive. We all understand that our equipment is very expensive. Our trucks are very expensive. So we all know these expenses are very high, and we understand what we're getting ourselves into. We understand that our prices may be a little bit low, and we might not see good numbers right away or in the 3 years when we're done. But at least we're here to help and provide to the community, which is basically what we're here for, is for the people. And being a college student who is also struggling, I do understand that it's hard to get these prices. And if you're the 4th lucky person to at least get a price a little bit lower, why not, give back to the community? And I understand that they make really, really great points, but also, there's a lot of hairstylists in Batavia. There's a lot of coffee shops in Batavia. There's a lot of scrunchie makers in Batavia. Are you going to tell them that they can't also build and grow their business because there's other businesses who have higher prices or who can make more? It's just also something to think about. Thank you.
Anybody else want to comment?
Just the last thing I'll say here real quick. It sounds like we have sort of 2 ideas that we're all sort of struggling with. One is, what do we do today, right? Do we bring on the 4th one? And then the second idea is, just so we don't find ourselves in the sticky situation in the future, it sounds like we want to give some more clear guidance to the chief in the future. When we get contracts, we want to be a little more clear in what we're looking for. Is that?
I think that you hit it right on the head. I mean, I think we need to make a decision on what's before us, because we need to have the contract set up for this year and the next 2. And then I do think we need to, at some point, have that discussion and figure out what are the parameters going to be, what kind of, things do we want to have a hand in? Do we want to talk about setting the price when we get to that point and having people that fit the criteria for that job, and then to give the price? I mean, we get hit every year and nobody ever thinks about it, except for me, because I can't stand it. The infernal 1928 law that's prevailing wage, where if we use any federal or state money, we have to pay whatever the prevailing wage is. Not if we wanted to go out and find 4 companies and ask which one, was the lowest responsible bidder, we still have to pay them prevailing wage, what the state tells us to pay.
And maybe I would suggest then that we take that second discussion and kick it to another day.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Most
And
definitely.
That we kind of.
Needs a little bit more than what we want to do tonight.
Okay. Thank you.
So I guess at this point, I would ask for a motion on Resolution 2025-29R, authorizing approval for police authorized tow contracts, including the fourth company.
So moved.
Second.
Malone, second by Saron. Roll call, please.
Baraza.
Aye.
Lancy.
Aye.
Beck.
Aye.
Pieper.
Aye.
Malone.
Aye.
Solfa.
No.
Wolf.
Aye.
Barron.
Aye.
Lehman.
Aye.
Ayazi.
Aye.
Malay.
Abstain.
Ewer.
Aye.
Saron.
Aye.
Vogelsinger.
Aye.
So that's 12 and 2 and 1 abstain.
No, so it'd be 11. 11, 1,
Oh, so 11 to 1.
11, 2, and 1. Okay. And that'll go to City Council with a positive recommendation. And thank you all for being part of our process and enlightening on us where I think we're going to end up going in 3 years. Might be a little bit different process.
What was the second no? It was an abstention.
Yeah.
Just one no? One no and one abstention. So 12, 1, and 1.
Your math is right, 14.
We'll make sure that we get that right when we get the minutes for approval. All right, up next would be item 10, which is Resolution 2025-38R, authorizing execution of a site host agreement with Batavia Public Schools for Level 3 EV fast chargers.
So we were happy to be the beneficiary of a Driver Cleaning Illinois grant that provides us $320,000 to put in some really good, high-quality EV chargers, both at our lot down on South Shumway, and also we partnered with the high school because they were in a census tract that qualified for it, and we thought, well, let's partner with them. We both kind of care about the environment and trying to get these put in. So we came to an agreement with them to put them on the southwest corner of the property, so right across from Station 2. Those would be 4 spots, level 3 chargers that my understanding is they can charge a car in 30 to 45 minutes. It's those kind of really high quality level 3 fast chargers that people can plug in and kind of makes EVs much more reliable and usable for people. So our intent is to work with them on this. We put up some matching funds as well, but this agreement lets us do the work and keeps that moving. And we're hoping that they're operational and up and running by the end of the summer.
You have any questions?
How much was the grant for?
So the grant is, the grant was for $320,000 and we have a $180,000 match. For the Shumway site, 90 of that is going to be TIF funding. And then for the school district lot, that'll just be 90 in general fund. So it's primarily state funded.
Good.
Abby?
Will there be no parking unless charging signage there for the
Yeah, so that's some of the grant requires us to have a level of signage as well. We've also got some language that we've been working out with the school district around, who can park there and when. We're not really intending to be heavy-handed on enforcement, but if we get calls and it continues to be a problem, there's appropriate remedies within the law to handle that.
I think that would be important out there because I'm sure, people are going to see that and hopefully nobody goes to the point where they just take the cord, stick it under their hood and close the hood and that's how they show they're charging. I've seen it. It's kind of funny when you see it, but then that was actually at another school site during football season. Yeah, definitely know that a Dodge truck does not have an electric truck. Or they do, but they have a diesel engine on it, so that's a whole nother
I
thing.
think one retrofit on an old Dodge truck to be honest.
Can I just mention that this is one of the grant applications that ACS helped us with, and that was a grant. The services there were $18,000, and here we've received even just this grant is $320,000. So money well spent, and we really appreciate that resource because they really do a tremendous job of, we just supply them with the information. They create these wonderful spreadsheets.
That's all they do, so that's what they're for. And
Yep.
it really does pay off when we have that. I mean, we've had that before in staff members here that have done stuff like that for us. But to actually dedicate that and to look at that, and that's something I think we should bring back every year at budget, is to remind us how much we spend to enlist them to do the grant writing and then what do we get out of that? because I think that's something that's important to show the public that, hey, we took $20,000 of your money and we turned it into $500,000 or whatever it is in the end when we get the grants and spend them and what they provide for the community.
I mean, we're constantly working with them. I mean, I'm probably emailing them at least once a week. Our team is constantly sending me grants to have us look into, working on, I mean, we've submitted fire grants, police grants. Now, we haven't been successful in every one of them, but it really helps reduce that staff time for us to go through the NOFO to find out what we need to do to get the documents. And it really becomes on our end, where are we putting the chargers? What do we want to do? Provide this information, and it makes it a lot easier for us to get that funds back. So, I mean, like we said, we spent $18,000 on the grant writer and $320,000 came in. That pays for itself for quite a while. Sarah?
That's an amazing return on investment for sure. That's really cool. And I don't think a lot of high schools in the area have these. I know one town to the direct north of us certainly doesn't. So it's really cool that we're going to be a leader on this.
Yeah, and I think it's also, it's going to become more prevalent. It's going to be something that gets used a lot more. I think it's something that we've talked about a few small times. If we get to the point where we have 10 or 20% of our citizens that have electric vehicles, we're going to be talking a lot more about how we're going to be upgrading our electric utility to be able to handle that. I think we're going to get to the point, this is my hope, is that we get to the point where when you buy an electric car, you have to put solar or wind to help generate the power to be able to charge those cars back up, because I think that's the only way to do that. And then it's not all on the utility.
And that's something we're going to look into as part of our electric infrastructure study and our resiliency study that you approved, I think, a couple of weeks ago as well.
Mark, and then I'll come back to Abby.
I apologize because I did not read the details on this. This has to be at the school, or what was the grant?
It doesn't have to be. There was a tract area. So within that, we could basically go, I think it was anywhere west, don't quote me on this, like Van Nortwick to Randall and then McKee-ish to Maine. So we had that area and we were, we have a large parking lot with the school district. Let's partner with them. It's something that the grant in applying for was looked favorably upon as intergovernmental relations as part of it. And so it was, a large parking lot, something that folks could take advantage of. They were agreed with it. It wasn't something that we'd have to pay for or anything like that. So it's kind of
I guess that space constraint is unfortunate because I think they did. I mean, honestly, I don't think it's the best place for it. It's not a site that's used year round. So unfortunately, I'd love to see one more in downtown that would draw people downtown and be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to park my car there. But
so we're putting another one in on South Shumway.
Yeah. So it will be there.
Okay.
And that's something that we can have, both with Main Street and the Chamber and everything, so that way we get that out there and some
We've
type
already
of signage.
engaged Main Street to we're going to talk to them about, some, small signage of like, get coffee this way, get a snack this way, to try to draw, because I mean, these are the types of chargers that draw people in from around the region. I'm not an EV owner, but for those that are, these are the ones that you want to go to that you'll actually put on your destination routes. So you can plan that out and be like, oh, let me stop in this downtown for lunch and walk around. And that's part of why we also chose to put it there as well.
Will they be on, I don't know what it's called, but it's like a registry for the charging things where, go out and get Navy's car and punch up the dash and say, okay, I'm driving from here to here and I want to be able to charge. They just pop up on the screen and you know what's the closest one to you. Okay. Because that is really important.
Yes, having one in downtown is amazing because right now I swear they're in car dealerships in the middle of nowhere and Walmart's in the middle of nowhere, and it's never a fun place to stop. But will we have a conversation come back to us about setting the rate for how much we charge to charge there? Okay, awesome.
Yeah, that's something that we haven't thought that much about yet, but it's something that I know is on our radar as well.
I've been in a lot of conversations outside the city in my other world as chairman of the CMAP Council of Mayors. With all the conversations that are flowing out of Washington and Springfield these days, the conventional wisdom is whenever you use the word grant, there's a question mark behind it.
So that was a worry of ours. We confirmed that this is a state-funded grant through the Clean Energy Jobs Act. So not at risk. Now, the guy I'm working.
This came about as a result of the Volkswagen settlement.
It might have been funded through that. It was authorized as part of the Clean Energy Jobs Act, yeah.
Use your mic, please, so we can hear.
When, so the ones that are on the school parking lot, those are for student, staff, whomever is associated with the school, or can anybody use them when
The grant
school's not in
requires,
session?
yes, so
Okay.
they're required to be open and accessible 24/7, 365. Now, obviously, if you can't be on a school, you can't use these, and that's something that would be handled as would be, but that we worked with the school district on these things, and the grant does require it to be accessible any time of the day.
They're open to the public.
Yes, they're public EV chargers, correct.
Other questions? If not, I'll look for a motion to recommend to council resolution 2025-038R, authorizing execution of site host agreement with Batavia Public School for level 3 EV fast chargers. Vogelsberg and Yazzie. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I think we leave that one on the regular agenda so we can talk about it at the council meeting as well, since it is a grant and we need to talk about that.
We're excited about it.
All right. On to number 11, discussion of single-use bag fee energy audit and rebate program. Who wants to start this off? Abby?
Sure, are we going to talk about the rebate energy audit first and then education campaign?
We should take them each separate.
I guess my first comment would just be like how excited I am for the whole discussion for all 4 firms, just the opportunity that we get to do this, the opportunity we get to do something really cool and new in the city of Batavia. And cool and new obviously comes with, everything is new. So there's like, we can't do anything right, we can't do anything wrong either, is how I think about it. But I would say from my perspective in looking through these, so starting with my thoughts on the energy audit and rebate program, I preferred the sustainability construction, the SAC, Craig, the second gentleman that spoke last time. I liked his approach to 80% AMI over and under having a different price point for both the audits and for the rebate for actually weatherizing your home. I liked his approach to going bigger impact per person and per home than spreading it out thinner across the community in terms of what's already being done by our utilities and what's being done by the IRA. So if an audit for easy math costs $1,000, then if you can afford $950, you can afford $1,000. So I also don't see the benefit in going with the smaller and the cheaper rebate. I don't think we're serving the people that really could be served by a greater investment and a greater upfront cost savings. And I also just noticed a discrepancy. I know that it looked from the 2 different proposals that perhaps one firm has a lot of experience in developing and administering these programs while the other one did not. When I read through it and in some other correspondence that I was copied in on, it's not that Craig, I do not feel that Craig is incapable of developing or setting up this program. I do think that he followed the RFP much closer than the other firm did. So he did $10,000 for his admin as requested, and the rest was invested in audits. And then he explained, not here in person, that $10,000 does not cover the setup of this kind of program. The other company, EIP, put in $30,000 into their proposal for program development, whereas Craig did not. So they didn't follow the RFP as closely, but they probably provided us a more accurate program or proposal for what this is actually going to cost to set up and to run. So I want to give Craig the benefit of the doubt that had he been given that kind of leeway to actually propose what is going to take to develop and run this program, but we don't know. We've never done it, so it's hard to include all those details in an RFP. So I have spoken to one of Craig's references that he listed on his proposal. I like that he is local. I like that he will stay a resource for our residents well into the future in whatever capacity this program takes shape. He's here, they're here, their homes are here. He's an expert in this field, and he can remain a resource for us, for those residents that use him, and I think for the betterment of our city going farther. Not that Chicago is not that local, but having somebody right here in Batavia, I just think is a win across the board. So my recommendation, my vote would be going with SAC.
We anticipate that, I guess the way that staff saw the difference between the two proposals was selecting a contractor to perform all of the work, the audits and the improvements. So he's collecting both the fees that would be paid for doing all of that work, and then in addition to that, getting paid the administrative fee for administering the program. Whereas the other company is more an administrator, and they have a list of local contractors that people could choose among different contractors versus just being able to select one. And maybe I'm mistaking things there, but it seemed like one was a rebate program and the other one was the city selecting a contractor to perform audits and to perform energy improvement construction work on homes.
My understanding, and I don't know if I'm accurate in this, is that for the first half of that, somebody to perform the energy audits, I read it as yes, right? They, SAC would be handling the energy audit. But I felt he was pretty clear in his RFP that the contractor doing the improvement would be explicitly not him, right? I think he went to lengths to say that he would not be the one doing the improvement itself.
Okay.
That was my understanding.
Maybe I was confused because another aspect of his business is a walling material that improves the insulation in people's homes.
Sarah, did you have your hand up too? Go ahead.
Yeah. I wanted to bounce off a couple ideas that Alderman Beck brought up. I liked both companies, and I am also super excited that we are at this point and we're choosing between these. I think that both were great. I do like that he is local as well. I feel like I trust him to be innovative and to really take care of citizens of Batavia because he's going to see them at Jewel and everything. And yeah, just liked his approach. I feel like he was looking at it through a slightly different lens and something that he really wants to take seriously and be proud of at the end of the day. And in the original materials that we got, he was the one that the Batavia Environmental Commission put their trust in. And I feel like we have these experts for a reason, and I give a lot of weight to what they say. So that would be my preference as well.
Mark? I'm in favor of SAC as well. I think when I first envisioned that we would do something, I wanted to make an impact. And again, so somebody gets a little bit of money to do an energy audit, they spend a lot of money and then they put a lot of money out of pocket, and then they realize, oh, I need to go spend X amount of $1,000s to reinsulate my attic, and now I don't have that money. And then it doesn't happen. Or they just they do it and they're like, well, that stinks. I can't afford to do anymore, but his program provides more to get more done and move that needle. And again, I'll just pile on top of the fact that he's local, and any time we can support a local business in doing something, I think that should take a priority. All other things equal, but the thing is with this, not all other things are equal, and I think that this program can do something and make a big difference. And we're not this isn't like a 5-year contract. If it fails, we talk about it next year and figure out if we have to do something differently.
I just have, maybe Max can, in terms of the question that Laura had and the understanding that Alderman Malone had, do you have a more definitive answer on that?
I have the language in front of me if you want me to read it.
Do you have it? Yeah. Could you?
Conflict of interest avoidance. Because of the nature of there being so few energy professionals in and around Batavia, it is possible that customers will seek answers or improvement services from the team members responding to this RFP. In the event of that occurring, every attempt will be made to encourage the resident to seek additional bids from other qualified professionals. Sustainability Construction pledges not to take on additional rebate work to implement any of the energy improvements outlined in the provided energy audit. If prescribed improvement services are conducted by another proposed team member, the work will be inspected by SAC for efficacy free of charge.
But that's basically saying that he is not going to do it.
Right, and I think that also then, puts that back onto the homeowner so that they can get what they feel is the best value to find somebody to do the work that is suggested from the audit. Right, they get to have their choice of how they do that. Whether it's something they do themselves, whether it's something they contract out with, that's their choice.
Thank you for that, just to clear that up.
Yeah, I just want to talk quickly about kind of the EIS proposal. I was impressed with their proposal. It's clear they come with some, understanding and all of that. I was left wondering sort of what is the value add we get from them. They sort of felt to me like they were simply going to administer, right? They were simply going to let the homeowner do all the work to find the auditor, which I've attempted to do with my own home, and it's very hard. I actually find choosing your own auditor to be a downside of their proposal, not an upside of their proposal, just for the record. Then pay for it all up front, fill out a form, and get a check back for $75, and they're going to charge us $40,000 to basically just sort of get a postcard and mail a check out. I'm sure it's more than that. I'm sure I'm being unfair to them, and I do apologize to them for that. But that was the feeling I had left. The second downside I really see is I feel that the putting the homeowner on the hook for the whole cost up front, then getting $75 back, especially for the low income or not even low income, where I'm at myself, right? That's going to be kind of a hard ask. $75 is not a whole lot in the grand scheme of things, but we can hit a whole lot of more houses. So it feels like low impact, high quantity. This other program feels like high impact, low quantity. And I think we got to say that the big thing in the room is that there is a question of capacity for SAC. I do worry that, they, I don't know what the business structure or whatever would look like, might get overwhelmed. But I do appreciate Alderman Ewer bringing up the point that I guess it is only for a year. That makes me feel a little better about that. Maybe we take the chance. Maybe he does burn out and he fails. Then we can go and try again, I guess. That kind of makes me feel better. But I think we got to say it. We got to say that that's a big lift for a small company to take.
As part of, and we heard from all of you that you do prefer larger audits and larger regardless of who you choose, that is something that we can negotiate and set up and kind of explore that structure further. But to your point, Alderman Malone, that was really the primary reason was the concern over the capacity. Another thing we're considering is, we're obviously doing these rate studies and some other things as part of the electric utility. Should this and large IP offer that was really the root of kind of our concern, was that level of capacity to actually program and perform the work as part of that.
One other thing, should we decide to go with Craig and he's saying only do a limited number of homes, I think we would need to direct him how those homes should be selected. So I think what we anticipated was a program available to all Batavians. So if it's only going to be a select few, I think a very critical aspect of the program will be how they are selected.
That was a concern that I had right away because, he's like, it's just first come, first serve. And then how many complaints, it's probably like the minority because, it's always the vocal minority that complains. But if all of a sudden it's just like, everybody's like, oh, we paid all these bag fees and 10 people got it. And it was first come, first serve. And, geez, we're getting gypped. because we paid $3.30 in bag fees last year, you know?
They're the most expensive homes in town that
Yeah,
participate.
right. And oh, geez, how come that house is a little McMansion and it got it, you know? So, I mean, you know, my only concern with the whole thing is just, and I guess it's kind of just because I don't want the brush back again. You know, with all the emails, we got so many emails about the program to begin with. If then we administer this and it looks like we're being unfair, it's just some kind of lottery or something, somebody's going to find some reason to say, this is all hogwash and we got gypped again. And we're paying bag fees still, the bag tax, you know, whatever they want to say. It's the perception. And that's what the whole education thing that Alderman Ewer's been talking about and that Alderman Beck's been talking about. I mean, the whole thing should be more education than, you know, the little lottery prize at the end of the bozo bucket anyway. You're supposed to be educating people to begin with this whole bag fee situation, as opposed to anything else. That was the whole important point, just to make us people don't use bags. So that's the worry I have.
I will say, the past week or so, what I've seen both in a couple of different blogs and, you know, Chicagoland media coverage of this, there's a lot of people that are looking at what we're doing with this money and, you know, kind of trying to figure out, okay, are they really trying to do something good with this? This wasn't just a money grab. This is take that money, invest it back in your community, whether it was giving away bags and how people utilize those, or if we actually go back and take this money and put it back into the housing stock that's in town, and we make improvements in houses that maybe have newspaper installation in them like mine did from the 20s when it was built. And, you know, other than it's a cool history lesson to find that stuff, it doesn't serve any purpose if we don't actually see some returns from it. And to me, that's part of how we have to pick these homes out, how we have to pick out the areas that we try to make this a statement that it actually is doing something good with the money that was collected from that. And showing real change to that. You know, if we take somebody's, you know, their home heating bill and bring it down by 20 or 25%, that's huge, you know, for that house, for the current owner, the next owner, and, you know, into the future. That's something that really does make a difference. If we don't see those kind of things, or we don't, you know, we try to spread it out really thin and give everybody $75 back, and, you know, what does that really buy you? One roll of insulation, you know? I think it really has to be something that is quantifiable, that we can show the public, this is what we did this for. We didn't just do it because we, you know, one, we wanted to cut down the use of bags. That I'm totally at peace with. Excuse me, but we need to have that money that we've generated from that be used for something. And I think especially in the first year or two of it, it's going to be important, because I'm hoping that we don't have this discussion in 3 or 4 years, that money gets down to almost nothing and it just goes out for simple rebates or whatever we can do with what smaller amounts are. I really don't want us to keep collecting $200,000 a year from that. Because to me, when you look at that and you think about how many bags that is that are out there, we want to cut that number down. So, and I think it is really good that whatever we do and wherever we decide to spend this money, that we look for the results from that. You know, is, hey, we planted, you know, 50 new trees, or we, you know, whatever things are there, that we talk about that and that people understand that's what the fee's for. It's not just a bag tax so that, you know, we can come up with money so we can have 2 more employees. It's not about that. It is definitely, you know, we wanted and we made that decision to put it back into something that actually meant something. Mark?
Yeah, you said something that is the irony of this. We don't want the program to expand. We actually want it to go away because we want the bags to go away. Unlikely to happen, but we may stay pretty steady with this, that it's like, you know, 10, 12, 15 houses, whatever it ends up being a year. And I'd feel good with that if we were making real change. And like you said, I mean, if it, like your energy costs went down by 20%, and I'd want to use, like, I'd want to have that on our website, that somebody had, by the way, here's the value that is provided. We averaged out their bills in the year prior and then the year after, and here's the what we've actually accomplished with this. And I think we'll have a story, whereas with a larger corporation, we wouldn't, because it would be a bunch of people did audits and then realized they couldn't afford to do anything anyway. And I think that this program is available to all Batavians. I think maybe that's another discussion we have. Do we do a lottery? Do we say it has to be homes that are older than X amount of years? I don't know what that criteria is, but there may be something that we can have, that we decide to say, well, this is how everybody's gets into the lottery pool, and you have like 2 months to submit for this, and then we draw. Something like that. I think it's a further discussion we would need to have, because first come, first serve is going to be somebody that's looking like, it's like buying concert tickets, right? If somebody hears about it, they're going to be like, well, when's that happening? And then they buy it and they all go away in the first 10 minutes. Buy nothing Batavia. It's whoever happens to be the first one to say, oh, I want that cherry you have. And
I just think the results have to be something that is quantifiable. I mean, I look at, I don't know, 15 or 16 years ago, I put in a Incidon hot water heater. It was much more expensive than just doing a regular hot water heater, but they went down 30%. And when you have 3 kids that like to take showers all the time, you have instant hot water all the time, and it was 30% less than the therms. The cost for a while stayed about the same, but then after natural gas leveled out, it was a lot less. And that's something, those simple things, and, that's the house that was on our second water heater. So, Dustin?
I was going to mention, add a little bit just for a moment, that could also dovetail in what Councilman Ewert's suggestion of showcasing the benefits of this for a house would dovetail very nicely with our education campaign. Showcasing the benefits that the bag-free proceeds bring that I think people still aren't quite aware of yet. Something we could even publish in the grocery stores, so people can see, oh, hey, there is a return here beyond just also the environmental benefit of having fewer plastic bags. Going again to the discussion of how to meter this out. One suggestion I had, pointing to Councilman Solfa's concern, is for homes over the median income or over 80% of the median income, it might, if we look at something closer to the second proposal, it might make sense to not cover the full energy audit rebate, but a partial amount, say like, $200 less than the full amount, or $300, just to give people in that circumstance skin in the game, so they're not just going to rush out and get it and think, oh yeah, I'm going to get in on this. It's going to be folks who are ready to make this adjustment, who are going to make most use of it, I would argue, rather than just, hey, it's a free energy audit, what do I got to lose? Obviously, they would.
The income level is that then we do have to ask for financial information from people, and they might feel that that's too much of an invasion.
That's already part of the proposal, though, right? I was going to ask how we would.
I thought it was home value.
Census tracts is one of the things, because we already know census tracts that people have voluntarily responded.
Wasn't it the home value? Isn't that what the 80%
And we could use home value as well.
Whatever, I was just referring to the 80% referenced in the contract to say that people who don't meet that threshold, maybe they should put in some amount of money just to mitigate everybody, stampeding in, even folks who might not necessarily need it.
I think this will be a learning curve. I mean, to try to figure out how to implement a program like this in whatever scale we try to do, we're going to learn things the first, second year of it. So I think it's something we'll have to be ready to talk about and adjust.
One thing to be mindful of is that as you're putting in program requirements, that also increases the burden of administration. And so, if you're instructing us to kind of go with SAC, understand that any additional requirements that we're putting on from income restrictions, lotteries, that continues to add to a burden level. So just that's something to think about. It's not necessarily a deal breaker, obviously, but as with any sort of program you're administering, the more loops you make people jump through, you also reduce intake, and you kind of make it more that higher income individuals and those that have time and energy and the resources to do so tend to fill that out. That's just something to be mindful of.
I love that this program, we're talking about would be geared to the lower income people. I just want to remind everybody, somebody on a lower income may not have the money to be able to implement a lot of the stuff that is planned out. I do know some people that are on the higher income that have had an energy audit and they've had to budget for it over time. So if we're looking to get a big bang out of this, with the clientele that we're going for, we may not get it right away because they'll have to save that money in order to put this money back into their homes. I think it's a great plan to, put that in their ear and set a plan. And there are people that will start doing that. But low-income people are not going to be able to implement a lot of the changes right away.
Sarah Header.
Sarah?
I had my hand up a long time ago and cannot remember exactly what I was going to say. Come back.
I've never done it.
Anybody else? Tim?
I was just going to say, I don't like any of that. I don't think we should get picky and choosy at all. If we're going to do a lottery, it's a lottery for anyone who gets, to me, you cannot just blanket judge somebody on where their financial situation's at by their home value. You have no clue when they moved into that house, what financial state they're in, that the home value has gone up over time, whatever it might be. Income is one thing, home value is a totally different deal. So I guess if it would be going to subsidize housing where we could know for a fact that, there's some low income, families there or whatever, that's a little different. But I think it just becomes we open up a can of worms if we're becoming picky and choosy as a city council on, who gets $1,000 and who doesn't based off of your home value.
I remembered. I feel like the one, we can have a much bigger impact with SAC, and we could reach more people with the other one, but probably less of an actual impact. But we can probably create a lot of stories, quantifiable stuff, with the smaller reach. And then maybe people are eventually calling and yelling at their aldermen in other towns that they want to implement this program. You just never know.
I just wanted to sort of comment on what Alderman Barron shared with us. Armand, I think he made a really good point. And one of the reasons why the EIS plan doesn't really appeal to me is that it's a rebate. And so if you're low income, can't afford that out the door, right? Like you can't kind of get that up front. And I think you're absolutely correct that then you can get, with the second plan, you can get your audit and maybe you lose out on that $3,000. That is a new front door. Ask me how I know. And that can save energy, right? But, so maybe you can take advantage of it, but maybe if you can't, you still have the audit and you still have something to aim at, right? Like I sort of see a lot of benefits for lower income or even middle income folks in kind of getting the audit up front rather than having to do that initial outlay, which is going to scare a ton of people off. I really just feel like it's really, maybe we can reach 400 homes a year, but if only 300, 200, 100 people actually get the audit, like, so what if we have all this extra money to reach? Just to push back on Lancey a little bit, I do think it is our role a little bit to be a little choosy. I hear your position that we don't want to sort of be the pickers and choosers, but I do think that we can play a good role in sort of setting aside a certain number of these audits for folks who are under that 80% AMI, and there's a lot of ways we can suss that out and figure that out, and also make sure there's some sort of free and open for everybody, right? But I do think that for our older homes, which are oftentimes inhabited by folks who aren't, at the 100% AMI rate, they're probably the ones who really need the help, right? They're the ones who need someone to tell them, you need a new front door, you need windows, you need attic insulation or whatever. So that's a lot of pros that I'm seeing from this program.
And then I was going to echo an earlier point you made for that program is because we already have the energy audit provider chosen, that's one less barrier of entry of having to shop for, somebody out there, especially because I haven't seen what the energy audit ecosystem looks like right now, whether or not people will be able to get very effective audits versus maybe a very cheap one where they just bring a one of those smoke sticks to see if there's air by your windows, that kind of thing. Like, the full-blown, quite literally in this case with the blown door and test audit here is most likely to provide value for the money that they otherwise might not be able to get. And because they don't have to actually source that person, it makes it so much more appealing, I think, especially because for people who just don't have, the time to dedicate to that and thus wouldn't enter the program. He's also mentioned kind of giving them an idea of what their best improvement would be. I don't know if there's going to be any follow-up of maybe creating here's what you'd want to take to some contractor, a package proposal of if this is the best you could have, and I know you're getting the $1,000 or $3,000 improvement rebate, giving them a better idea of what they can take to a contractor to implement that. Again, makes that process a lot easier, especially for lower income homes who might otherwise not follow through with it. Because, it's a lot of work to actually dig up contractors for some work if you haven't done it before, especially. And that can be a hurdle for folks in that circumstance as well.
I just wanted to circle back to the income eligibility and the different tiers in Craig's. I think because he baked that into his proposal, that's not an administrative burden that's going to be too much. The other company also mentioned working with community action centers who do the low-income LIHEAP program, the weatherization program. I sit on the board for the Kane County Weatherization Company, Community Contacts. So I'm already talking to them about making sure that we're not duplicating efforts, like making sure that we are providing something very similar to what they do for folks that are at or below, and I just lost the page, 200% of the poverty level for King County. So that's going to be different than what it is for Batavia. So it is trying to fill that gap above that point. And the process for proving that and providing that information on your income is not a huge process. It's not a onerous process for any party involved. So I think we should be mindful of that because we don't want to duplicate what they're already doing and provide the service kind of to folks that wouldn't qualify for that.
Alan, I get just a thought here. If we want to find those success stories that we can, we're focused on fewer, so we have more success stories to tout and say, look at what we're spending this money on, how successful it can be. I would think we would want to find a system that would find the most inefficient places. And maybe, figuring into that equation, the age of a home, because older homes are less efficient than newer homes. So maybe that's a way that we can look at, setting age as age of the home rather than focusing solely on income levels.
We do have the full spectrum of age of housing within this town, from, I'd say probably 1860s or 70s is probably some of the older ones that are still untouched, and then all the way up to brand new stuff.
My home before this one was built in 1860.
Yeah.
60. Yeah, you got me beat. Okay. Before the Civil War started.
I would just sort of hate for somebody with a 1957 home to lose out because of all of our old homes. I don't necessarily disagree with you. It's just I think the message I'm getting from this is that if we end up going with SAC, we probably need to sit down with them and have a good long discussion kind of about what makes sense, right, for our objectives and what's going to be.
We want to have, I don't know, a straw poll tonight of which
1958 home
of which one do we want to go with?
Specifically, what about 1979?
Slow. Just saying.
I don't know. It depends on who was building them and who has occupied them since they were built. Because I've also been into some older houses in town that they went through and did complete blown-in insulation and everything and new windows, and it's pretty amazing how much different a vintage house can be with the correct work done to it.
I get the impression that you would direct staff to work on making a contract with SAC at this point. And we can try to come back and determine parameters of it.
So as part of those conversations, we can work with Craig and, get his input on how do we set those, it sounds like from council, there's a desire to, prioritize need, but also consider income and wealth to an extent. We can work with him and see what's been done in other communities, what are the best ways to set that up, and kind of come back to you with a structure that both staff and Craig feel is reflective of what you've kind of given us the guidance on. And then as we bring that forward, if there's tweaks or things that you want to see made, we can kind of go from there. Does that sound like a fair plan?
And I think, in that discussion, talk about what he sees as what kind of range or where, the best use would be for that. Where are you going to get somebody that's going to put the money into the house to fix the things they need to, or to make the upgrades that, you're not just going out and doing an energy, audit for somebody that is never going to have the money to do that, or, there isn't a source for that. Just because we know that the house needs that doesn't, mean that it's going to happen there. And I think that, to me, is one of the things I want to see us use this money. One, to identify those, and then two, to try to figure out how they get fixed. How you get to that point so that there is a benefit from spending that money.
And then one more quick question is, obviously, in terms of the concern about capacity, Craig's proposal had planned for more funds to go to the program itself and less to the administration. Are we okay to kind of, if need be, move those around to kind of make it a more capacity appropriate program and, work with him and kind of, not?
I think so, to the point where it makes sense to do that, to try to target the implementation of it to get the result from it. I don't want to spend a ton of money on administration if it doesn't help us in the end, or, I don't want to spend more on administration than we have to get the results where I think everybody is in agreement that we want to see out of this.
Understood. Absolutely.
Okay. Tim?
Yeah, I would just want to double down on the marketing idea, and I think I've said that from the jump with the whole bag fee from the get-go. I know everyone had great intentions with it. However we want to slice it, it got rolled out, and we had some negative feedback. We got to market it and get it out that these dollars are making a difference for what we said it was going to make a difference for, right? So, I couldn't agree more.
One of the education things, we're talking about the bag fee education on the next item. I will tell you, I have been outside of Batavia and in a store and watched somebody pull out the bags and get ready to bag groceries or whatever they were buying. And literally out of the cashier's mouth is, "Oh, you must be from Batavia. You have your own bags." And in a way, I kind of want to stand up and say, "Wow, that was really cool," to hear that. But that's something that I think people realize. I mean, you go out into Menards or any of the big stores out there and you watch somebody that's not from Batavia and, "Oh, I have to pay for bags."
I think tone means everything there. I don't know how they said it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, it is. And some of the reaction is just unreal of people throwing the bags back onto the counter and throwing everything into a cart or trying to walk out like this with 17 items. But I think the reality is I don't know that we ever get over trying to educate people about that, because it is also true in other stores. I mean, I take bags that I have, and it doesn't matter where I'm going to now. That's what I use, unless I forget. But
You gotta use your Batavia bag, though.
I use the Batavia bag usually when I go to the farmer's market because it's heavier and it holds more. But I have a Menards bag, and I'm really good about it. I leave the rebates in there, and that way when I get the rebate stuff, I remember to take them into Menards because it's a bright green Menards bag, and that's what I use when I go to Menards.
I think about rebates. I throw my rebates away all the time from Menards, and I'm an idiot, right? I throw away my $75.
I saved mine religiously.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can spend them for you if you don't want to keep them. I have no problem with that. Okay, so now we're kind of moving into the single-use bag fee education campaign. And I wasn't here last week, so I don't know. Did we talk about that? I don't remember seeing much of that.
wasn't a whole lot talked about. It was more about the programs.
Right, and I think, again, the other thing to me is more important for our community than this, but this is something that we cannot forget about, and we have to keep trying to feed people that this is how it works.
So one of the cool things that evolved from that last meeting was that the two folks who pitched on the educational campaign talked afterwards and found that there were a lot of complementary aspects to their two proposals. So one of the things we could work on is to see if we can take our budget and meld the two companies together to focus on the areas that are their forte. So the videos for one, the more printed materials from the other.
Yeah, I was very generally, I don't know, disappointed, I think, in the presentations from the Ed campaign folks. They put together great presentations. They obviously do very good work. I didn't get a sense that they had a very good theory of persuasion. Like, I didn't really get a sense that they thought about what the messaging would be, or, the gentleman, I'm sorry, the names are all escaping me at the moment. The gentleman spoke, and his response was, well, I'm going to have you guys do it. And that's fine, but I think what we're paying for is a little direction, right? We're paying for direction. We're paying for somebody to think critically about how to craft the right message, make sure that we're saying the thing the proper way so that people don't misread it. So that was a little disappointing for both those proposals. So I'm kind of excited to hear that maybe they could work together, but I would like them to sort of understand that I am kind of counting on them a little bit for messaging, at least from my perspective.
To me, I think the thing that I want to see us talk about is that it's a choice. You're making a choice when you go into the store and bring your own bag. And you're making the choice not to have more plastic, not to throw away more plastic, and, to make whatever little tiny dent that everybody in a town of 30,000 can make. So I think that, to me, that, to put it that way and to try to, get people to make that realization that it is their choice and that the right choice is to bring your own bag. Mark.
We've all seen the post. Everybody realizes that, or I shouldn't say everybody, but there's people that realize, oh yeah, okay, so the city's got $200,000. They still haven't figured out how to spend it. My preference on this is to try and combine the marketing to be like, hey, here's what we're doing, moving kind of away from the, hey, by the way, it's your choice and that kind of thing. Cat's out of the bag. It's been going on for a long time. So people get it already. But I would rather focus on, hey, here's the program we're doing, and focus on the successes of the program, focus on advertising that program so that people see what we're going to do, rather than try and, get back to square one where we probably did not advertise well enough to begin with. We can't undo that. The bell's rung. So let's talk about what we're actually going to do and advertise that. You can continue to have like little, you can kind of poke at it a little bit saying, we want this program to go away because we don't want to collect the money. We want all Batavians and everybody to stop using plastic bags. So that's my thought on it. Rather than jump into it right now and have them start a campaign about why you shouldn't use bags, let's talk about the value that it's actually going to bring, but then start to twist that message saying this is a program we want to stop doing in the next few years.
I would agree with that, to focus on, there's a certain population, you're never going to get them to agree that, hey, that's the right thing to not use single-use plastic. So change the narrative of, hey, by doing this, look what we're accomplishing. This is, that's some real tangible proof that, hey, bringing my own bag is worth it.
All we're trying to do is associate the fee with something positive instead of negative, right? So when they're in there and you pay the fee, hey, I just helped somebody out with an energy audit and, whatever, associated with that. And I know I would be much more comfortable with it, and am now that I'm here. But as, a citizen before I was on council, shame on me, I wasn't paying attention as much as probably should. that's just what's in people's heads. So until we really blow it out there that this is what we're doing and we're giving it away, really, I mean, that's, I think, what people want to see. They're giving it back.
I agree. I think that would make strong messaging, and I really like the idea of melding the two companies together, because when they presented, I did feel like they're almost presenting about different projects completely. And so I think that makes a great deal of sense, because the videos that have been produced already are strong. And then, the other one I think does beautiful work. So
I definitely agree on the topics brought forward already that we should address. I think there would still probably be bandwidth for other topics surrounding plastic bag usage and maybe other environmental topics like the benefit of the wastewater detention pond naturalization, for instance, tying into that.
Yeah,
That'd be a
the
good
benefits,
one.
talk about,
Yeah.
thanks Batavia, you've just done all these things for your community and your
Exactly.
neighbors.
So I feel like there's, and it was going to be dependent on, how far the money goes for the company we choose, but I think you can cover both. But I definitely agree with emphasizing that side of it as well, and not just the upfront why we're doing this, but also what it's bringing to the town.
Abby?
I just wanted to say that the part that I didn't love about the proposals was the designer bag thing. We haven't talked about the designer bag. I didn't know if anybody else really loved that part.
Really got it. Always keep a stock of a couple hundred on hand, because there are opportunities for us to get out there in the community, and people really seem to love the Batavia bags. Mayor gets asked for some all the time. So we'll always keep a few of them on hand, but I don't think we need to buy thousands anymore.
Kevin?
So do we have a sense, it sounds like after the meeting last week, they kind of got together and chatted, but do we have a sense of, was that sort of informal, hey, I like what you're doing, let's maybe work together? Or do we get a sense that maybe they could, is this realistic, right? Or is it simply?
I had conversations with both vendors. They're both very open to it and kind of wanting to know more about what roles each would play in that. So obviously one vendor, Gary Ricky and Orbis Media, was more focused on kind of those short kind of TikTok type videos. And Vicarious is more of a kind of your traditional PR firm and does social media, website content, written content, and those sorts of things. So seeing as that's where they tend to prioritize their resources and where they're kind of good at stuff, we see that opportunity as, all right, well, we use Mr. Ricky's team kind of, and using additionally the high school students as well that he works with, to kind of make maybe some of those shorter videos, maybe talk to a resident since they're in town, they're in here, to maybe do some of those, hey, tell us about your energy audit. What have you been able to do? We obviously reduced the cost of parkway trees this year as part of that. Tell us about your tree. How are you caring for it? And then more of the kind of more general campaign type stuff, the regular social media postings, the press releases, kind of those. That is probably what we're going to go more with Vicarious on. That's something we would have to have a conversation with them about. We haven't, decided on how budgets get broken up and all that, but suffice to say they were both open to the concept.
It almost seems like Vicarious Multimedia might just subcontract to Orbis for the video segment, would be a part of that.
We'll figure kind of how that works. We've worked with both of them in the past. They're great people to work with, so we're not too worried about that.
On this one, we done. Okay. Then I will need to ask for an executive session for personnel.
And we do have other business items following that. So my recommendation would be that you have your executive session in the Alderman's room.
Okay.
And then come back out here afterwards.
All right, motion for executive session, you need to do it?
Motion is.
Nick would be able to be in there. I can call him on my phone.
Yeah.
Okay.
So moved.
Motion. Who was my second?
Mark.
Mark. Okay. So Sofa and you were motion and second. Roll call, please.
Peraza. Lancy.
Motion for executive session.
Oh, aye. Okay. Beck. Piefer.
Aye.
Malone.
Aye.
Solpa. Wolf.
Aye.
Barron. Aye. Lehman. Aye. Ayazi.
Aye.
Malay.
Aye.
Ewer. Saron. Vogel Singer.
Aye.
I'll call you in a couple minutes.
Okay. We will adjourn to the Alderman's room. So we don't have to kick people out tonight.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Okay, one more hour.
Yeah.
Say one more hour to go.
All right.
Okay. And now we need a roll call to come back into regular session.
Okay. Baraza. Here. Lancy. He'll be right back. Beck.
Here.
Pieper.
Here.
Malone.
Here.
Solfa.
Here.
Wolf.
Here.
Barron.
Here.
Lehman. Ayazi.
Here.
Malay.
Here.
Ewer.
Here.
Saron. Vogel Singer.
Here.
Please.
Okay. Almost all of us that left for executive session have returned.
Nick, you just have to say here.
Here.
And then Wendy has 3.5 minutes to go through ordinance 2025-15, amending 2025 wage and salary ordinance for non-collective bargain employees, public works changes.
All right, good evening. As we've had discussions, as you know, there have been multiple changes in the Public Works organization with retirements and recent promotions and so forth. Additionally, taking a look at the different changes and reviewing over the last 12 plus months, we are proposing some changes in the Public Works structure. With that, just a form of the process is we would need to update the wage and salary ordinance, as you see attached. The changes that are being recommended, as you know or are aware of, Andrea was recently promoted to the new Assistant Public Works Director. And then additionally, these would be some proposed changes going on. An additional addition to the Assistant Public Works Director / City Engineer position, which would be pay grade 23. But then the removal of the City Engineer, Electric Engineer Manager position, which is a pay grade 22. So those two would be changes. We would combine the Water and Wastewater Superintendent position to a pay grade 22, and then the removal of the Water and Sewer Utility Superintendent position and the Wastewater Superintendent position, which are both pay grade 20s, and then an addition of a Water and Sewer Operations Manager position, which is a pay grade 18. So you'll see those changes reflected in the pay ordinance. Additionally, yesterday, just for public comment, I just want to make a notice, just in the effort of not bringing you this wage ordinance multiple times throughout the year, if possible. I also added in May with the treasurer change. As you know, prior, there's a change to that, and it just states in the wage ordinance now referring to an additional stipend for the individual who would fulfill the treasurer duties. So you'll see that listed. That does not become effective until the first meeting, May 5th of this year. Do you have any questions?
Have any questions, comments? Pretty much all what we knew was coming down the pipe. Any questions, Nick?
Pretty straightforward.
All right, then I would look for a motion to approve or to recommend to council ordinance 2025-15, amending the 2025 wage and salary ordinance for non-collective bargain employees with public works changes.
I'll move. Second.
Lancy and Solfa. Roll call, please.
Baraza. Aye. Lancy.
Aye.
Beck.
Aye.
Pieper.
Aye.
Malone.
Aye.
Solfa.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Barron.
Aye.
Lehman.
Aye.
Ayazi.
Aye.
Malay.
Aye.
Ewer.
Aye.
Saron.
Aye.
Vogel Singer.
Aye.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
And then we'll move on to item 15, project status.
Yes, I have a couple of things. The Brattle Group project, which is the for the electric utility, the resources planning, the resilience planning, cost of service study, and rate study. We're planning to have a kickoff meeting for that on March 25th. It'll be at 6:00 p.m. immediately preceding the COW meeting that evening. And Lori has put information out there on the web about that. We'll include it in our e-newsletter, and then we'll also send out notices in the utility bills so that everyone's aware of that. And if they are interested in coming and hearing about how the course of all of those projects are going to be planned, and also opportunities for the public to give any input or comments that they have for that plan, we encourage people to attend that meeting. Also, with regard to the dam Concept B feasibility study, we received 2 responses to our request for proposal, and they were 6 figures, where we had budgeted $25,000 for the project. But both of the proposals included a lot of engineering, such that it really looked like preliminary engineering for the project. We would like to go back to the drawing board kind of with the RFP that we put out and make it more clear the phase of project that we're looking for. We're really not looking to do the engineering at this point. We just want to look at, what is it going to look like? What types of engineering need to be done? What would that engineering cost? What are the agencies that we're going to have to work with in order to get permitting? What does the timing of all of that look like? And then perhaps look at, an economic development aspect to that too. So I think we need to kind of right-size the project before we move forward, if everyone's okay with that strategy. Good. Okay. Very good.
Okay.
That's all I have.
That's all. Okay, does anybody have any others?
I thought a quick one. I visited with Logan Street Baptist Church this past weekend, and I wanted to let you all know they were thrilled to have received the Black History Month proclamation last week, and they're actually going to mount it up, in their vestibule area. So
that's great.
They were very happy to be, seen by the city, and also are hoping to work with the city again next February, with including maybe even a video presentation. So
that's great.
Yeah, I shared some of the pictures that were here. I don't know if anybody saw that on Facebook, and just all kinds of comments about people that, outside the city had connections to the people that were shown in here. So it was really nice to see a lot of the comments that came from that. So
great.
Really a good thing.
Yes.
Can I add to that real quick? One of the teachers that was listed in the proclamation had my older son and is currently my younger son's teacher. So I got to say her name while she was in the audience. And it was just very, very cool. So thank you to everybody for approving that. It was really cool.
Well, next month is Women's History Month, and we've invited our Batavia Women's Club to be here and present our proclamation to them. Just for those who may not know, the Batavia Women's Club has more than 100 years of tradition in the city of Batavia. They're our oldest charitable organization, and they're pretty special.
The other thing that probably should be mentioned is that in May, the Depot Museum is going to celebrate its 50th anniversary. And they've got quite a little celebration put together over, I think, a 2-day period of time.
This Friday night, I think, from like 6 to 8 is the opening of the.
Right, she's opening, Kate's opening a new exhibit, but they're going to have a 2-day thing in May, which is the anniversary of the 50th anniversary.
They sent out a real nice flyer with the QR code and everything.
Right.
It was a very nice presentation.
Good stuff going on in Batavia.
All right, then I guess all I need now is a motion for adjournment.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Self, second by Lancy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, go home.